Hi there, Jen Russell coming to you from Bedminster, New Jersey. I am recording this video as an accompaniment to an email that I would be sending to clients, friends, and family about a month into this new reality we're all faced with. And I will be creating a second video that's going to be going over something that I am hoping will be helpful to not only my existing clients, but possibly some of you out there I haven't had the opportunity to work with, because I had to close my massage practice a month ago, and I've been feeling really sad not to be able to work with my clients in the way that I'm used to. I haven't been someone who does virtual sessions and haven't figured out a way to do virtual massage. But for any of you who've worked with me recently know that my massage practice has evolved to include things beyond just traditional on-the-table massage. I was inspired a number of years ago by my coworkers, Dimitri and Lauren, to really invest in deepening my knowledge of anatomy, of movement, and corrective exercise strategies so that I could potentially help my clients stop chasing symptoms but look for some root causes, and to empower them to have things to do on their own that would bolster what it is that we did in our sessions and hopefully have more long-lasting benefit. So I've been really happy to see the concept of self-care being addressed and given attention during this time of high stress and anxiety. But as I've seen things unfold, I wonder if for some of you that concept might first of all feel a little vague or confusing, or even especially maybe for those of you who are feeling like you have even less time right now than normal. Maybe you're working from home for the first time while trying to homeschool your children. You may think, I don't have time to add one more thing. Or on the other side, maybe you do have more time than usual, but still are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the content being thrown at you. And in both cases, I wanted to be able to give you something that you can do that will not only help you physically, but can help with stress, can potentially help with sleep. And that will be interesting to those of you. Maybe you've worked with Lauren and Dimitri or one of the trainers at Excel. Maybe you've thought about and learned a fair amount about what I'm about to talk about, which is breathing. So I want to give enough information that will be interesting to those of you who have some foundational knowledge, but I also want to keep it broad enough so that if you are someone who has never thought about the breathing, and right now we're sitting there thinking, hello, I breathe every day and all the time, I know how to breathe, I'm hoping to bridge that, find an intersection for those two groups. So with that in mind, why breathing? What's the big deal with breathing? Well, it is the way that we came into the world, and it is the last thing we're going to do before we leave our body. And additionally, we are now dealing with a virus that one of the most terrifying symptoms is shortness of breath, the inability to breathe. And so any client who comes into my office, if they are willing and open, the first thing I want to look at is the way that you breathe. Because in fact, there is an optimal way that we all started out breathing. We used to be amazing breathers, every single one of us, because we are hardwired to move and to breathe well. The problems come in when we start getting something called cognition, when we start mimicking our caregivers, when we start having emotional stress or repetitive motions because of sports or devices, sitting and looking at books and devices and driving and reading. Falls and injuries. And I say all this not to be a negative Nelly, but to say there's a reason that we moved away from that beautiful way we used to move and breathe. But there is opportunity to bring it back. We just have to learn it again. So the way that I'm going to coach you through breathing, again, is going to not only help you create more stability in your trunk, in your torso or your core, that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but it also is the way that you would need to breathe in order to calm your nervous system, to reduce our stress and anxiety levels, to move out of that fight or flight place and into a place of calm. So it's a twofer. So I want to give you a little bit of anatomical knowledge. I love this stuff, so I tend to go too far sometimes for people, but I want to give you a little bit of some imagery at least, because I do think that having some pictures in your head and a little bit of foundational knowledge will go really far to helping you be better at this and helping you to keep it consistent. And also, these bodies that were given to us are pretty amazing. And so learning at least a little bit of anatomy, I think is really wonderful. And I have a particular vested interest because I was a voice major in college. I was a wind instrument. I am a wind instrument. And so I actually thought I knew a fair amount about breathing, but as it turns out, my knowledge was incomplete, for sure. And so I speak as someone who thought I knew a fair amount. And additionally, I was a person who had a lot of back pain. And all of the stuff that I have learned more recently has helped me get through a pregnancy and postpartum period with minimal back pain. And I was someone who had it pretty consistently throughout my later teens and into my 20s. So with that all being said, this is what I want you to picture. When you think about breathing, a lot of people will think about their lungs. Pretty logical place to start, right? But the truth is that our lungs are the place in which we bring air, but they're not the mechanism by which we create that pressure system. They are just the receptacles of the air we're going to bring in. And so we have this amazing system. It's a bunch of team players who work together to help us to breathe well and to stabilize our spine. Because I'm about to talk to you about what are called your intrinsic core muscles. Those are muscles whose main purpose is to, number one, stabilize your spine, and number two, to help you breathe well. So what I want you to picture, I'm gonna go up a little bit. I want you to picture a long balloon. The top of the balloon is your diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle underneath your lower ribs here. The bottom of that balloon are your pelvic floor muscles. And any of you women who have had babies, I'm sure have heard of your pelvic floor muscles and that Kegel that everybody talks about. But the Kegel is a really incomplete exercise because we need all of these systems to work together. So the top of the balloon is your diaphragm, the bottom are your pelvic floor muscles. On the back side is a muscle called your multifidus, and then wrapping around like a corset is what's called your transversus abdominis. Some people call it the TA or TVA. So again, you've got your diaphragm at the top, your pelvic floor muscles on the bottom, your multifidus in the back, and then wrapping around is your TVA. As you inhale, what should happen ideally is that diaphragm is going to descend downwards along with your pelvic floor muscles. And then the rest of your abdominal muscles are going to expand. That's where that balloon idea is they're going to fill in relationship to that diaphragm and pelvic floor muscles coming downwards. And then conversely, as the diaphragm and pelvic floor come back up, those abdominal muscles are going to contract. That's where you're going to squeeze slowly the air out of the balloon. So now if you have that image in your head, I want to talk about positioning, because there's no point in working on this if our alignment and posture is not in a position to help support that. So I learned these 4 posture cues from the amazing Kathy Dooley when I took a class called Immaculate Dissection Core Concepts a number of years ago, and it still is one of the very best classes I've ever taken in my life. I can't wait to take more of them when we have time and are able to leave our houses. Anyway, so those posture points are long neck. I like to imagine someone coming up and kind of pulling your skull up towards the sky, chin back, chest wide, and lower ribs down, so that you get this nice elongation of your neck, but not at the expense. We don't go like that. We're not looking, because then your chin is up here and you're putting a tremendous amount of pressure at the back of the skull, which is where all of the nerves that need to communicate with the rest of your body go through. So we want that to be open. So that's where the chin back comes in, so that our ears are over our shoulders. So I want to encourage you to move away from vanity, because you are in fact going to probably give yourself a double chin. Chest wide is just about opening up the chest so that you have nice open ability to fill through your center. But that's not about pinning the shoulder blades back. We're just looking to open up the chest. The last cue of ribs down, I find to be the hardest for myself and for a lot of people because a lot of us think we're doing good posture when we walk around with our rib cage flared out like this. But what that does, the diaphragm needs to be able to descend downwards on the inhale. So if you're walking around with rib cage flared out like this, you've got your diaphragm stuck in a long position here and has very little capacity to go downwards. And then conversely on the exhale, you're gonna have a much harder time getting your abdominal muscles to contract. So again, you're gonna think long neck, chin back, chest wide, ribs down. So I hope that gives you a little bit of foundational knowledge so that the next drill, where I actually go over the breathing, which I promise will be a lot shorter than this one, but I hope that I was able to give you some good information that will allow you now to look at the second video. I would love to talk more. I could talk more, but I promise I will stop. But if you're interested in learning more about this, learning how to optimally breathe is a lifelong endeavor. I've been at this for a long time now, and I still am finding new challenges and new kind of barriers to move through. But I tell you what, when you take a really beautiful full inhale and a slow and controlled exhale, it is an amazing feeling. And I promise you will never regret investing time in learning how to breathe well, especially when we know that there are thousands and thousands of people out there who are desperate for a deep breath. So thank you for spending some time with me, and I will look forward to seeing you in video number 2. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to post this on social media, so if you want more information, I'm happy to talk more about some ways that we might be able to work together to help you to feel better, feel less stress, feel less pain. And thanks for your time.